So, first I'll talk about how we store data. So you might know from maths you can have things called variables which store some data. So I could have a variable called x, and that might have a value of 15. In JavaScript, which is what we're going to use to make the bot, we use a keyword called let, and we say let x equal 15. And so now if we the value of x equals 15. Anywhere we use x, it's going to be 15. And the way we can test this is we can say console.log x. And if we remove this first line, because that's not valid JavaScript syntax, we can go terminal, new node concepts.js, and it prints out 15. We can also do basic addition arithmetic, so we can say x equals x times 2. If we run that again, now x equals 15 times 2. We can reassign the value of x, so we can say x equals 5. We can also say, we can also use things called compound operators, so we can say x plus equals 2, 3, whatever. If we run this, x equals 15 plus 3, which is 18. We can also have strings of characters, or you could think of them like sentences or words. So I could say let y equals hello, and then if I console.log hello y, I'm going to print out 18 first because we did console.log x, and then we also did y, which is hello. And then we can also have booleans, which are just either true or false. So z equals false, console.log z. Let's put that false. So those are the 3 main data types that you'll use. So next I'll talk about about objects. So an object, everything in JavaScript is an object. So console is an object, log is an object, false is an object, z is an object, everything. So, and the way that you define custom objects is you say let w equals, so for any name, it can be anything, equals curly brackets, and we say, we could say the name w, and then the species let. You can have whatever you want here. You don't have to have name, you don't have to have species, you could put anything. You can also have things called functions, which are like, it's a way of writing code that you don't want to keep repeating. The value of x times 2. In JavaScript, you have to specify a function with the function keyword. So you say function f takes an argument of x, and it returns x times 2. So if I call f by saying f of 10, and I console log f, it should print out 18, hello, false, and then 20. And it does. Okay. So you'll notice that functions, the way you call functions is you have the function name and then some brackets. So we have an object called console, which is sort of like this, and it has a function called log, which takes any value and spits it out to the console. You can also denote functions by saying by assigning them to a variable, because remember, everything is a variable, is an object. So you could say let r, let's say there's a function r equals function, and it takes a I parameter, console log I. If we call R with 10, we run it, we get 10 in the console. There's another way of writing functions, which is you can say let my function, or any name you want, equals some parentheses and then parameter 1, parameter 2, and then like an arrow sort of thing, and then you can say console log parameter 1 plus parameter 2. And notice that you don't have to return a value from a function. Although if you do it, a function only returns one value. So if I call my function with 5 and 456, should print out 461, and it does. Okay. So some objects are really complicated to initialize, and they require, when you want to make a new object for your own use, you might want to have some special variables on it that they change depending on what you want to use it for example. So maybe I have an object called client, and I have a name parameter, but I don't always know what the name of the client, whoever's using this object, I don't know what they want the client to be called. So instead of using this standard notation here, we can say class client, and that's some curly brackets, and then we can have a constructor. And this takes a name variable, for example. We don't have to take name, but it can. And we can say this.name equals name. And this will print out an object. This creates, when we make this, it prints out it generates an object where the name field is whatever the name supplied to it is. And the way we can actually make it is we can say new client. We can say let client equals new client, and then down here we can say console.log client.name. And if we run this, oh, we forgot to give it a name, so we can call it Jeremy. It prints out the name because we logged the client the name. So, and if we log just the client, you can see it's just an object with a name field and Jeremy as the value of that name. So this is pretty simple stuff. So the way we actually apply this into a Discord bot is a little more complicated. So I will delete this file, and then in the terminal, if you've installed Node, you should be able to type npm init-y, and it will generate a package.json file. And then we want to install a few packages so that we can interact with Discord. So we're going to install, we're going to say npm I discord.js space axios space nodemon space .env. And when it's finished, they've been installed, so we can use them in our code. Okay, so you can see here's a node modules file. It's enormous. It's got all these different packages that we're using. So if we go up here, it's got a discord.js package, and this is all the source for that package, or the source code. But this is no use if we don't do anything with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a folder called source, src, and we're going to make a main.js file inside of it. And this is where all of our code is going to come from. This is where the root of our project is and where all the code is going to be. So we will say const discord equals require discord.js. and the const keyword means this variable never changes. We never change the value of Discord. And we can also say we can say require .env .config. I'm going to explain what this does in a moment, but before we can, but after we've done this, what we should do is we should make a .env file. So we say .env, and we can say token equals whatever the token on your developer portal is. And we can also say prefix equals, for me it's going to be asterisk, it's whatever you want to be before your command. So if I want my command to be like asterisk cat, then I would use an asterisk. If I want it to be backslash, I use a backslash. So paste your token in here, which you get from the developer. And then here, this is where we're going to actually do some stuff. So we can say const client equals new discord.client. And if you remember, this is sort of like the thing we pass to. This is sort of like the class we made in the concepts.js file. But this constructor doesn't just take no arguments, it takes an object, and it has an intents field on that object, which is an array, which is just a list of things of the same type. So we can have a list of strings, a list of numbers, or whatever, but in this case it's a list of intents, which are a Discord feature. They just let Discord know what your bot's going to do. So we can say our first one is discord.intents.flags.guilds. This just lets the bot interact with the server. We can also say copy this and say .guild messages. Okay, and this just initializes a client for us to use in our bot. So down here we'll say client.login, and then we'll say process.env .token. And what this does is it takes the token variable in our .env file, which is initialized by using require.env.config, and it sticks it into this variable here, and lets us use the token variable as login. So next, how do we know that our bot's logged in? So we can make a function client.on, and we can say ready, and then once it's ready we'll have an arrow function like before in the concept.js file, and we can say console.log bot is ready. And if I run this, so node source/main.js, wait a few moments, bot is ready. So that means the bot is online in Discord. Great. Next, first off, we're gonna figure out how to run this, because typing out node source/main.js every time is a bit tedious, and it changes if we move this file around and stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into package.json. We're going to make a new script, and we're going to call it start is equal to node source/main.js. So now, if we type npm start, it'll run the script for us. Great. Okay. Next, we'll do something to actually handle messages. So we'll say client.on message create. We want to take a function, an asynchronous function, which means that it runs outside of the event loop, which is kind of complicated to explain, but I'll try and explain it later on. So another arrow function, which takes a message parameter, and this is just the message that was sent when this function was called. So we can say if the if not, so exclamation mark means not, so it just inverses whatever is after it. So if not, the message.content dot starts with our process.env dot prefix. If you remember, we set a prefix variable in the .env file here. If it doesn't start with that, we want to return, because we don't want to do anything because it didn't start with our prefix. Next, we can say the command const command equals message.content.split by a space. So if you think about the way a command is structured, so when I send a command to the bot, I want to say, let's say the command is search, so I could say asterisk search, so where asterisk is the name of the prefix, sorry, and I want to have whatever my search term in here is. I want to get rid of all of these, so I want to split it into an array, and then I want to get the first element. So we could imagine this now like an array which has all these elements of it, and I only want the first message, the rest of these. And then we need, so first off, we just need to get the first element, take the first element, put it into a variable, and then we need to remove the first character because we don't care about the asterisk, all we care about is the actual command. So to do that, we can say split it into, so the split function splits it by the spaces, so it creates an array which is separated by all the spaces, and we say 0, because in JavaScript arrays count from 0. The first element is 0. So we get the first element of this array of words, and then we slice that string. So we take the first we can slice it up in different parts. So we can say slice 1, and this will take off the first character and use the rest. So if the string we were slicing was asterisk search, it would take off the first character. Okay, now we need to actually do something with the command. So I'm going to fast forward from what we actually did in class to a better way of doing things. So we did this on the second lesson, but not on the first. We're going to make a folder called commands, and then we're going to make a test or a ping.js file in here. And we'll just leave this for now. But first we need to actually load all these commands, because theoretically there could be hundreds of commands inside here. So in our bot, we want to say const command files equals, well, first actually we need to require fs, so const fs equals require fs, and this just lets us interact with the file system. So we can say equals fs.read dir sync, and we can say source/commands/, and this will print out all the files that are inside the inside the commands folder. So now it will just print out ping.js. Next, we need to say command files.forEach. So this, for each of the elements in this array of files, of file names, we want to take the file name and have another arrow function like before, and say const command equals require / command. So this is just saying a relative directory / and then we can add the file name to it. Then lastly, we need to actually store these somewhere. So we can, up here we can say const commands with an s equals new discord.collection, and then we can say commands.set, and then we can say the file name command. So this object here will have a property called of the file name. So there will be one for ping, and whatever the the value of command is, whatever ping exports. But actually, this will have a .js on the end, so we need to slice it 0 to -3, because the way that, and the reason it's -3 is because, let's say we have a string, we can call it test. We get the first element, so 0, 1, 2, 3, and then we get elements from the end of the string, we say -1, -2, -3. So if we did slice 0, -3 on this string, we would get just t, because the last 3 characters are ignored. Okay, so down here we can say const command object equals require not require commands dot get command. This is a bit of a difficult to say, but essentially for this object we get whatever key, whatever function or handler for this command has the command name as its key, and then we'll say command object, and we'll call that because this will be a function. So we can say await actually, because this is an asynchronous function. Okay, now we actually need to build a command. So here we can say module.exports equals an arrow function. This takes a message parameter. It's sort of like this function up here, and this will also be async. And we can say message.reply pong. So hopefully when we run this, it will reply to the message with pong. So I'll say npm start. The bot is ready. Okay. So we can go to our server and we can say asterisk, what was the command? It was ping. There was an error. What was the error? Oh right, we forgot to give this command a message as a parameter, because you see here we took message as a parameter but we didn't give it one here. So let's try that again. Ping home. Okay, so now what we can do is we can copy a few of these, and we can say let's call this cat, because we're going to use one to get images of cats, one for axolotls, and one for food. Okay, but how do we actually get the image of cats and axolotls and food? So first we need to use a new library, not just Discord. So we're going to say let's start with cat actually. So we can say const axios equals require axios, and then instead of saying message.reply pong, we can say axios.get, actually .get, so we can say axios.get aws.random.cat/meow. This gets a random cat image. So we can say .then. So once this request is finished, because if you do a Google search, it's not instant. It's the same with making a request to the cat API. We can say then response. We can say async response. We can say message.reply Well, actually, we can use an embed. So we can say and we can say const message embed equals require Discord. So this gets the message embed object from Discord. So we can say const embed equals require equals new message embed. And we say dot set title cat image dot set image response dot data dot URL. Actually, it will be response dot data dot file. And then here we can say await message dot reply message dot reply embeds, and we want to have an array of embeds, but we're only going to supply one embed. Okay, so hopefully if I do npm start, there'll be no syntax errors. Great. And then I can say cat, and it has a random cat image. Great. Okay. Now we can pretty much copy and paste this for the axolotl and for the food, except we're using different APIs. So I'll show you how to do the food one, and then you guys can figure out. Actually, I'll show you the axolotl one, and then you guys can figure out the food one. So for the axolotl, it's not the cat URL; it's this one. And for this one, we can set a description. So we can say dot set description. Response dot data dot facts, because in this URL, if we go to the axolotl API, we have a URL for the image, we have a facts, and we have and then we have these two little URLs for the repository, and yeah. We only care about these two because we can get a fact about axolotls and also a image of one. So the way we do that is we say this is in the data of the response, so we can say data.url to get the URL of the image, and data.facts to get the fact. So you can see we set the description to the facts, and yeah. So if I Control-C to exit, and I click and I run it again, go to Discord, axolotl. What is the problem? Oh yeah, and that should be URL, and this should be axolotl image. Oops. Anyway, go to axolotl image. Researchers are encouraging axolotls to breed by building shelters in... I don't know how to say that. There we go. Okay, so that's how the axolotl API works. So for the food API, okay. So if we go to the Foodish API, we get an image parameter. So remember, for the axolotl, to set the so for the cat, we did set image response.data.file because here there was a file parameter, but it's image for this one, so keep that in mind. It'll be slightly different. And remember, we set a different URL because there's different API. So it's foodishapi.herokuapp.com/API. And we'll set it to food. And I won't show you how to do the rest of this one, but I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So so now you've got a setup where you can use Discord, you can dynamically execute commands. So any commands in the commands folder, you can run them, and they will automatically be run. And yeah, thanks for watching.